Welcome back, my Mavericks. It's ThinkorSwim time. Let's get into charting techniques. This was actually requested from the Maverick community. I'm not sure where it lies in the criteria. It might be a review for some of you, but I thought it was a pretty cool topic. There's all sorts of different ways to chart. There's all sorts of different things to add, and I've got a lot of questions on strategies. Some of the strategies are super common. We have videos on all of these, the top ones here. Fibonacci, Bollinger Bands, channel drawings. We've got tons of videos on it, but we don't have anything specific to ThinkorSwim. So I figured I'd give a little bit of an overview, maybe regurgitating some of the things that you guys have learned, but hey, where to find it on TOS and just kind of see it on its platform. What I like about this is finding possible entry, exit, and targeting points based on personal time frame and the outlook preferences. Folks, we have day traders, we've got slow players, we've got sideways, we've got condor guys, we've got 8 weeks out, we've got 2 days out, all sorts of different types of trading personalities here, and it will fit all of you. But what's really cool is you got to make sure that you're scanning it based on your personality, your plan, and your preferences. So I figured I could get through a basic overview of how to use these and get close to it. You guys go from there. So charting for multi-tiered entry exit points as well. I do have a lot of traders that say, you know, I got into this thing for 5 days and I wish I held it for 3 weeks. Well, guess what? Here's a way that we could use some of these charting techniques to have a primary and secondary target, maybe extended targets, ways that you could take half positions and then maybe let the rest roll, all sorts of different ideas that we actually teach here at Maverick. This is going to be specific to the charts. This is going to be specific to some basic strategies, but I'd like to spend just a few minutes and go over it with you on ThinkorSwim. So thanks for the request, folks. Let's jump into it. So I ran into the spiders. This looks like a pretty good setup. Definitely showing some signs of bearishness. I'm not going to get into a complete charting class here with you folks, but I will point out a couple of things that I did notice in this. And these are pivot points, right? We've got lower pivot highs, and they're showing consistency. And then I'd like to draw some pivots on the bottom. These are lower pivot lows. And it looks like we're starting to slide here. We really haven't established one yet to this point. Now that's support and resistance. We've got our own classes on that, but I like to identify some sort of a pattern based on the pivot points. Are they decreasing, increasing? Where are they in conjunction with the moving averages? You guys can see I've got a 200, a 50, and a 20-day moving average on my chart. From here, we can just start drawing all sorts of those common strategies. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase the support resistance lines that I drew, and let's just go down to what ThinkorSwim has to offer, which, like I say, the majority of softwares out there do have the same things. I just figured I'd show you kind of how I use them on this platform. I don't work for ThinkorSwim, by the way, real quick, guys, and you probably know more than I do, but I thought I'd share. Okay, there it is. Now what's really fun is I have found this channel, and for you guys that are new to drawing channels, it's kind of nice to have a parallel line from the one that you draw to begin with. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start on those same pivot points that I drew. I'm just going to click once. I'm going to drag the line down. And what I'm trying to do is get this line straight enough to where it correlates with at least one other point. And you can see that I actually hit it right there. And then I click it one more time to drop it. Now once I click it to drop it and I start to move my mouse, you can see that it's drawing another line. And this line is just absolutely adjacent, or it's just a carbon copy of the previous one. And what I like to do is try to line it up with some sort of a support level or two consistent bottoms. And I go ahead and drop it. Well, check that out, guys. I've got a nice little channel. From here, I could do some studies thinking, okay, what's up to this point? Maybe if it comes back up or if it extends further down. Now we've got all sorts of decreasing range in a channel. Now, for a lot of my trend traders, this is a great place to identify areas to where they can get into it. This also comes to the Bollinger Band traders. I'm going to go back to my little arrow here so I can draw some lines for you. Now, just with the channel by itself, you can identify areas of where this could turn at one point. Let's say, I'm just making these up, and we're going to get more specific to the days here in a second. Or, where it could kind of move its way down. So you could target this. Okay, I could expect to move lower to this area. I could see maybe it's going to rally back up to this area, and it gives you price points to where you could get into some bearish trades, bearish positions, things of that nature. So just with this basic channel line, you can get a lot out of it. Now the channel line itself is pretty arbitrary, or I should say pretty objective. It really just depends on where you drop the line. There are a little bit more specific types of strategies out there if you want to get a little bit more precise. How's that? So one thing is, I just go back to my little arrow you see there. If I highlight this, they turn blue. I hit the delete button, things go away. Just a little navigation help for you there. The next thing I'm going to show you is, okay, well, we've got ourselves that channel that we looked at, and I'm going to jump ahead to one thing that I do like a lot. This little measured trend line. This guy's fun right here. So what's neat is I could go ahead and click at that same top, and I'm using these just so we could stay in line with things. And I could see that we had a move. Oh, actually what I should do is from the top to this pivot point here. Now I'm just going to hold this here because this is where you get the majority of the information for this line. Once you drop this line, it's kind of hard to get it. But you guys can see that I just measured 21 days, which is 15 bars. It excludes weekends. And it's a 10.63% drop over that time frame. Now for you guys who are super nerdy, it's at a negative 55.92% angle. And why does that matter? Well, because if I move over here, it adds days. If I move over here, it minuses days. So if you want to keep things all the same, we're going to have to draw this line, drop it, and remember, we're at about a 55-degree angle. So in 20 days, and I'll tell you why that matters here in a minute. In 20 days, 15 bars, about 10%, right? I moved it a little bit, so we're at 9.93%. But we're at a 54.57-degree angle. Now I'm going to just go ahead and drop that. Now when I drop that, it doesn't really give me the information that it had. However, what I can do is draw another one and try to mimic it. So I'm going to go down here to 21 days, and I'm just moving it over to this area. Let's see, that's 21 days. I'm at 53. That's 54. Let me get that 52 angle as close as I can. And I'm going to, that's that another 10%, and drop it here. Okay, all things being relative, it's just, hey, if I could expect that same move over the same time, where would the stock be? And taking a look at where I dropped that, it's still a rough estimate, about 370. You could see here on the price line, which is, if you take a look back in this area, is support. Now I have a lot of people like this. They like this setup. It's kind of new. It's newer to me, excuse me, and it's kind of cool because it allows you to compare the previous move or whatever you've measured to the next move. What this also can do is alleviate some of those bear rallies and bull pullbacks and things of that nature. Let me give you an example here. I did stretch this pin from this bottom to this, or from this top to this bottom, but take a look. This is something that we would have had to sit through as a trader, especially if we were looking for something bearish, which is fine. We measure from this current spot, you can see that we had to sit through a previous move before I started that line. These are just a little bit of suggestions, some strategies, things to think about. This isn't an all be all. Remember, we are talking a lot more art than science when it comes to targeting and trends, things of that nature. But I do like how these are pretty consistent and easy to draw, easy to manage. Cool. So let's move away from our straight trend line. I do like it. Remember, just go back to the arrow, highlight it. You can delete yourself out of it. And let's go to something that a lot of my traders like to do. So you go up to our little beaker up here. We've got our studies. And I'm just going to go to studies and type in BO, and there it goes. It's got my Bollinger Bands as start as I pull it up. Highlight it, add selected, hit apply or OK, doesn't matter. Folks, I have a video on charting. So if you want to refresh yourself, please go for it. Now this gives us our Bollinger Band set. One thing that I like to do is keep things a little clean, so I'm just going to go ahead and go back up to my settings, and I'm going to erase some of these simple moving averages, just keep my Bollinger Bands on so it's nice and clean. Now, Bollinger Bands are great, and they're super popular. What's interesting about them is they will exceed levels, and depending on the type of trader you are, you will either use that as a bounce or you'll use that as confirmation as a continuation. I'm not teaching strategy, but I'll give you a very quick overview of it. So we can see that this is actually testing that lower Bollinger Band, and it has been for a few days. This is in an expansion period. So you guys that are Bollinger Band traders, you're probably going to want to wait this one out until you see some sort of retracement. One thing that I do like about this pattern, and I chose it for a reason, is because we had a beautiful retracement from the lower Bollinger Band back to its median before it rolled over. This is a great indication of continuation to the downside and or pushing that lower boundary. So what's neat about this is where we can make decisions. Let's get into types of things that you could do when it comes to targeting, because I told you guys we would, right? All right, well, an entry would be maybe a breakdown below the lower Bollinger Band. Now, for a trader that is trading these and uses this median right here as a resistance point, this is a good opportunity to actually add another position. Maybe you take half position at level 1 here, and then if it comes back and tests and confirms resistance at that falling median, this is where you take position number 2. That's right, two-tiered entry. You also have the idea of once it breaks this area, you can start to target to a price range where you would take maybe half a position at the target and see if this thing can do it again. That's right. I'm walking you through some hypothetical situations on analyzing using a chart. What types of strategy you use? Plenty of them. All sorts of different things. Diagonal spreads, targeted butterflies, straight stock, things of that nature. So Bollinger Bands are pretty sweet depending on how you use them. Bollinger Bands can help also with range, and that's just your basic knowledge of upper Bollinger Band for resistance, lower Bollinger Band for support. This is where you probably want to play it, having stops and targets outside of that range as well. So there's your Bollinger Bands. Now let's jump over to the Fibonacci retracements. These are super common, and people tend to like them quite a bit. The first thing I want to do is let's get rid of our Bollinger Bands here. I'm just going to go back up to the beaker. Let's dump these, and then I've got my sets, my basic set that's already preloaded. If you guys want to know how to do that, we've got a video on it. Use set, add selected, apply, okay, and everything's back. So I've got myself, my moving averages, everything's set back to where I like to see it. So let's do something that's kind of fun, and I like these. My favorites, the Fibonacci retracements and the extensions. We're going to start with the retracements first, and I'm just going to take a big chunk because we've been playing with this big chunk. I've been starting here at the top, and I've been going down to, we can go down to current if you'd like. Maybe I'll go back to this pivot to keep all things equal. Once again, guys, this is so cool because you could use this based on your preferences and what you like and what matters most to you. Now, real quick, you guys noticed that I actually started it from the top and drag it down to the bottom. The retracements are actually showing an extension to the upside. I'm glad I did this on mistake because I want the extensions to the downside. Very easy way to fix it. Go to my arrow, highlight it, delete. Let's go back and put it on again. Let's do it the right way. Now I'm just going to start from the bottom here. Just go to the top. There. Now it extends to the bottom. Now I'm going to have to go back to my cursor here, or my little pointer, and kind of squeeze this down. That way you guys can see my extension. Now what I like about this is it tells me, okay, of course it's at the 100% of the move because I started from one pivot and ended at the other pivot. I know that. It's the extension from this area that is my interest. So I know that if this is really going to break down hard, and it's probably going to take some days. How do we test the days? Well, you guys can always go back to this trend line, and we could draw this bad boy, keep it at a slope, keep it whatever the angle is, draw it down here, and I'm going to hold it, and it looks like that would take 45 days or 34 bars, right? 34 bars because this takes out weekends. So I'd need 30 days. I need about a month if I'm going to hit this target down at the 334, 335 level. Isn't that nice? This is why I like that little line. I'll go ahead and drop it, and I'll erase it. And it's not fact. It's just this nice little area to kind of use as a measurement. So I know this is going to be my longer term target. Now what else can I get from the Fibonacci retracements? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. How about a secondary position? The idea that, okay, if this does bounce, at what point do I want to get out of it? Well, this is my upper pivot point. And if this retraces up to, let's say the 61.8%, that might actually be a good place to sell more or get more bearish as it maybe starts to roll down and continue towards that 161.8 target that I want. Just similar to the retracement of the Bollinger Bands. So depending on if you're a two-tiered entry, if you're looking for some sort of protection, if you're looking for adding more to a position, this is a great way to do it. So there we have it. That's the retracements. Now this is super easy, and understand it's going to be very specific to where I drop that second line. Let me go ahead and erase this. If you notice that I actually took out one pivot point here. Let me pull my pin back up because it could be substantial. I drew from this pivot point down to, I believe, this one. Now, what about this one? What if I drew from here to here? It's going to be very different. Or if I did a shorter time frame, here to here. This is where it becomes very specific to the type of trader you are. Obviously, I would say the shorter term, the most recent trading is more relevant to the most recent trader. So if I'm looking back in this area, unless I'm trading 45, 50, 60 days forward, it's going to be irrelevant. This is the most relevant because it's the most recent. So I always find my short traders usually focus a lot more on the most recent turn. My longer term traders will take a bigger slope, which they should. It's more of a larger bite, or I should say a larger sample size, which would make the most sense. All right, well, I'm going to end it with the Fibonacci extensions. And this is one that I like a lot because, personally for me, guys, it kind of gives short and long. It gives short and long term. So the first thing I'm going to do with Fibonacci extensions, I'm going to start from the peak. And this is the most recent peak, isn't it? Notice I didn't go as high as I did the previous time. And I'm going to go to a pivot, and then I'm going to go back to the most recent pivot. Now I'm just going to say something real quick. These are established pivots. And I went from right to left. The first pivot, let me draw the pin here. The first pivot that I did find that was established and confirmed was this one. This is also a pivot that's established, and this is also a pivot that's established. Sure, this one is as well, but from right to left, these are the first. This is number 1, that is number 2, and that is number 3. And that's kind of how you draw it. I went from top, which will show the extension to the downside. If you go from bottom, it'll show extension to the upside. So there you go. Now I've got my most recent pivots. It's showing 3 pivots instead of just a retracement from one to the next. So I've got a little bit of an extension in there. I've got a little bit of a longer term outlook in it. And I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at. So let's go ahead and analyze this. And let's talk about a couple things we could do with this. First, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hit my little finger and move this chart up because you can see we got a little bit to work with here. We've got all sorts of fun stuff. You can see that from the previous drop to its retracement to where it's dropping now, it is already about 100% of that move. So we are actually breaking lower. And then I've got a super extended target. Now this is the exact same approach. I could put, let me move this over, bring this down. I could put protective stops at an area if it gets above, I want out of the position, or if it rolls over, I can add to the position. Let's say that we get down to the 161, I could take half my position at this area. You can also cut this short. And I have a lot of traders that do this, and they ask me this question a lot. It's like, well, geez, Joe, I'm seeing some support and resistance areas in the back that I'm a little nervous about. Well, you can have a primary target, secondary targets. You can have as many as you want. It just depends on where you're at and what you're looking for. A couple things to take into consideration is, and this is more of a portfolio example or conversation. What do you have in your portfolio? How long term are you? How bearish are you? Do you have a lot of bears? Do you have a lot of bulls? Do you have a lot of sideways? You really kind of need to hedge yourself out. So if you find that you've got a whole bunch of short-term trades on, you might want to kind of aim more towards this area. You might want to extend yourselves and look for something a little deeper. However, if you're not that type of trader, which is more important, then you just kind of trade the style that you're looking for. All right, guys, like I say, it wasn't going to be too in-depth. If you want more information on these types of strategies, we have endless amounts of classes. I think we've got a handful on all of them. Bollinger Bands, Fibonacci targeting, Fibonacci retracements, consolidation trading. We've got a bunch. I just figured I'd run through kind of the gamut of what ThinkorSwim has to offer. And what's great here is just this little pull-down tab. Go ahead and play with all of these. Mess with it and make sure it fits your criteria. Thanks, guys. Once again, thank you for the suggestion on the video. It's a little remedial, but it is a great basic start for you guys that are new to the ThinkorSwim platform. All right. Thanks again, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.